Welcome to If Prices Could Talk, the podcast where we dive into the art and science of pricing, sales, and negotiation. I'm your host, Tracy Dent. Join me as we explore strategies and current events shaping the future of pricing power in B2B, featuring insights from industry leaders and subject matter experts. Let's jump into today's conversation. I have so many numbers. Are you ready for the numbers?
Yeah.
So first of all, this for people listening, this episode, we're going to get into the Super Bowl, value of mostly advertising around the Super Bowl, and then some of how the markets are changing with advertising with Netflix and
Yeah.
some of these other players. So
Yeah.
we're going to hit some numbers first.
All right. Let's
Okay.
do it. I love it.
All right. So first of all, just in terms of viewers, this year, Super Bowl, 127.7 million viewers, which was the most ever.
Oh, that's great.
Interesting. Last year was more like 123.
Okay.
CNN said that ad revenue for pure play digital, which excludes streaming, is expected to grow 10% in 2025 to 813 billion. But by comparison, TV ad spend is expected to grow to 169 billion, 2%.
Wow.
Big difference there. But still, this ad spot of being like $7 or $8 million. So I was looking in comparison of some of the other like big ticket events that people watch. The Olympics, for example. The Olympics have 5 billion viewers over the course of the entire thing, but the cost for a primetime ad is $800,000.
Oh, wow. What a deal.
I know. And then some of the more recent things in the last 6 months with Netflix streaming sports. So we had Jake Paul and Mike Tyson, 108 million viewers compared to
Pretty good.
127. Like that's
Yeah,
pretty
that's pretty
good. And
good.
then Christmas Day, the Beyonce Bowl, which was the Ravens Texans game, 13-minute show at halftime, 27 million viewers.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good.
So
I, I, I,
interesting.
I, yeah, I think it's also like the Super Bowl now. We've come to a point where everybody it's part of the show. I don't know if the ads are part of the show with some of these other events, even though the numbers obviously, prove that, hey, they can hold their own. But because it's become part of the show, it's like no one gets off the couch to go to the bathroom because everybody's like, all right, what's the ad that's coming up?
Right.
And so it is really interesting that they've got us locked into the television, the whole entire time. And that's saying something. So that's on a positive note that there is some unique value that's there because they've gotten to that point over time.
It's true. The other thing I was thinking is just the way that people talk about the Super Bowl. Like all year round, people use the term like "this is my Super Bowl." The way that
Mm,
the
mm,
aura of the Super
mm,
Bowl has been
mm.
kind of like propped up and then
Yeah.
perpetuated over all these years of how people talk about how important it is.
Yeah.
Um, just kind of an interesting
It
thing.
is, it is. And what's funny is it's a US phenomena, right? So
Yeah.
people talk about it, and I'm surprised they don't talk about it for the World Cup or something else that's that big, like cricket or something. It's that really is a global sport. That would make more sense instead of like this tiny sliver that's the US.
I was just looking up how many people watch the World Cup because it has to be more than the Super Bowl.
Yes.
A 2022 World Cup final in Qatar, 1.5 billion people
Yeah.
watched.
Yeah. 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 Pretty much the entire world watches,
That's crazy.
you know?
Yeah.
So
23.5.
I'm surprised that we don't use that phrasing. I obviously can't put an ad out there for 1.5 billion people to watch because everything happens
Mhm.
at local streaming levels, right? So you still have a very small, relatively speaking, to the 1.5, a small sliver that's your world. So in the US, as an example, there aren't a lot of people that watch the World Cup. There's significant, but not as much as a percentage of population as India or Pakistan or wherever. Pick another country. You're going to have a much higher rate of viewership. So maybe it makes sense. So let's keep the conversation US based
Yeah,
for now because I
that's a good
think
call.
that might be the better way to do it.
That's
So
a good call.
what did you think overall with the ads? I'm curious as your sort of take on just overall with the ads. Because you were
I've
home, right? So you were able to
Yes, I had
watch,
people
listen.
here to
Yeah,
watch. So it's
yeah,
like everybody be quiet for the
yeah, for the
First of all,
ads.
also for people watching, I live in Philly, so this has been a very exciting week on many fronts. This is like
Yeah,
every interaction at every store. This is like hello, go birds. Like
yeah.
it's a whole thing. One thing that was stand out to me was you had Little Caesars and Pringles that both did the flying off of the mustache and the
Oh
eyebrows
yeah, yeah,
concept, which was
yeah,
so odd for two such big brands. But then they kind of played off of it on social media and did like a collab kind of thing in their post. But
yeah,
I thought that was weird from a creative perspective.
yeah.
I feel like Budweiser always has that really cute, like animal
Clydesdale.
based.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
They
they
had that
released that
horse
early,
one.
by the way. So there
They
was a
did.
few that was early release and not Super Bowl release, which I
That's
found
right.
interesting. And I'm like, oh, are they trying to, obviously they spend a lot of money making these ads. So are they trying to elongate sort of the effect of it by doing a sneak peek before, then
Yeah.
the Super Bowl, and then even after?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, it could be because the other thing is when I saw it before, I sent it to you, I sent it to other people. So you see an ad in advance, and then does that kind of up the chances of like the day of when you're with people, you're like, shh, 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 this is a Budweiser ad. This is so cute. Everybody watch. I don't
Yeah,
know.
yeah, yeah. I don't know. We did some. Obviously, there was only four of us watching the Super Bowl. We were in New York at a friend's house, and I did sort of Kelly took notes, but I did a little bit of pre-advertisement sort of understanding of, hey, are you guys looking forward to any specific ads? Are you looking
Hmm.
forward to anything that you think you're gonna watch, you're gonna see, that you really want to see, kind of things. And
You did a
there was
survey? You did a little
a
marketing
little,
intelligence up front?
little survey. I don't want to say the word, the S word, because it was very impromptu. It was very non-technical, but it was, most of them talked about Budweiser because they wanted to see the Clydesdales. But besides that, there weren't a lot of, yeah, I'm really looking forward to this or that. I also asked like buying intent type of questions, like, hey, is there do you find historically, have you found these ads to be informative where you're like, you know what, I would love to buy something from this brand. Forget about a specific product, but just this brand. I would love to buy something. And everybody's like, no, there's nothing like that.
Hmm.
So it was just really, I know we're going to get to the ROI piece of it, but just that informal before we saw the ads, those types of questions yielded nothing specific besides it's just being used as entertainment, as you would watch, a Seinfeld episode or something, rather than something that's used for information or a change in buying behavior.
Yeah, I was looking at some of the numbers for changes in demand. Because the other thing is, I'm looking up, is a Super Bowl ad worth it? You Google that and you get arguments on both sides. And then the
Yeah.
umbrella kind of takeaway is it depends, which we know we don't say that on this podcast. It's like Voldemort. This is the worst. Okay, so advertising, one of the things that said, yes, it's worth it. So I pulled some of the numbers. One thing on a macro level is that mostly the changes in demand are with women.
Hmm.
So this article said that they saw on average a 20% increase in demand for women and only 1% for men.
Right.
So this was from the year before last. Advertising winners from Super Bowl commercials, Mick Ultra, 19% increase in demand. Pepsi Zero Sugar, 18% increase. Frito-Lay, 12% increase. And then Heineken Zero, 11% increase in demand.
Interesting.
It's kind of an
Interesting.
interesting time for Heineken Zero because I feel like all the non-alcoholic markets are growing.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
they've got a couple things working in their favor there.
Yeah.
And then it was pretty much the same for women. So specific to women, Pepsi Zero Sugar, same thing, Mick Ultra, Heineken Zero, and Crown Royal Whiskey. Crown
Hmm.
Royal Whiskey,
Mount Royal snuck in
26%.
there. Wow. Huh.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, it's the women one is surprising, why there would be a gender gap. Then I'm like, well, maybe, it's still Super Bowl is still very male centric as far as viewership goes, although the women population set is growing very rapidly, which is awesome to
Hmm.
see. But I think in that same article, Tracy, correct me if I'm wrong, even with those demands, I think there was a point that the author made, which said for 7 million, he or she still doesn't know if that's worth the ROI, right? So
Hmm.
there's two components. One is, okay, let's say you were able to drive demand within women, because the men won 1%. That's within probably margin of error there. So who knows? But the 21% is significant, right? So let's say you were able to really drive that. You still question whether $7 million is, are you getting the return for it?
Yeah.
I think that's the biggest question is this is the first article I saw where they really talked about the demand piece and having it be a positive impact, because everything else I've seen, it was either neutral or no impact whatsoever, or even a negative impact in some of the products or brands.
Hmm.
But this one was really positive from a demand perspective, but even the author was questioning whether the 7 million is worth it.
Hmm.
So I don't know. I'm definitely on the side that says if you use demand ROI, dollar per share as your metric for are these ads effective, I think the answer you're going to get is no. But if you look at it in all those different ways, I don't see how you'd see a positive ROI coming out of such a large number. But having said that, I think one of the ads that crushed it is Nike.
Hmm.
And I think there is still an opportunity to fortify a brand connection, just like Anheuser-Busch. Nike did the same thing by making that connection, that bond stronger. So your base is stronger because of it. And Nike, I think we've talked about it in a couple of other podcasts, because of all the transitions they've done from, hey, we're going to go direct to consumer now. We're not going to use distribution. We're not going to use the retail channel. We're going to go direct to consumer. We're going to take away athletes, basically being a SKU based product, which is a
Hmm.
horrible idea. And they saw
It
it be a
hurts.
horrible idea. Now it's like filled with athletes, first of all, which is great to see that connection. And not only that, it was filled with women athlete, and they had specifically, it was run for women. So maybe they also saw the demand with the women going up, so they created this ad. Although I think most men should watch it and be inspired as well.
Hmm.
And it's a shame if they don't, but still, that's just me. But I think it's important that they kind of played that tune because they're going back to their basics. And I think it's really, really important that they do that to rebuild that brand, because I don't think they're doing that. They were doing that well in the last 18 months or so.
I thought they did such a good job also of going back to the basics to your point. Like we talked about this with Intel, where you have these companies who are like, wait a second, we've got way too far off from who we really
Mm,
are. We got to like rein it back in, get back to who our brand is and what we really do at our core, while still playing to the modern, like think about how much the WNBA has changed in the last
yeah.
year with Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese, all this stuff where you have people that are way more tuned in to women's sports than they have been in the past. I'm like, I think they did really well with that one.
Yeah, I think, and not to deviate too much, a quick story about women's sport and why I think it's really, really important. I think it is a growing segment. I think it will be a growing segment. We're watching a lot of dollars going to women's sports from an investment perspective and a growth. You've got NBA players buying into women franchises. So there's a lot of dollars coming in, and I think because it's sort of in the beginning stages of a boom. And Caitlin Clark is a perfect example. She's kind of, allowing this to happen along with all the other great ones that are out there, right? Reese is out there and a couple of other ones that are coming in that are just doing a phenomenal job. So I don't want to put all the reward on Caitlin's shoulders or the stress, because it is spread by the top sort of, I would say, 5 to 10 athletes that are in the WNBA. But quick story, I was at one of the first games that here in Phoenix for WNBA that when they started. And I will tell you, it was one of the worst games I've ever been to. And I could not believe how boring and how terrible that game was. It was really, really, I did not have a good time. The experience wasn't that great. The quality of the product on the floor wasn't that great. And I didn't enjoy it. And so I stayed away from it. And then a couple of years ago, my sister had her birthday, and she decided to celebrate it in New York, and she wanted to go to a New York Liberty game. And I cannot tell you, Tracy, how incredibly entertaining it was and how
Mm,
high the quality of product was and how amazing everything was. The cost was a little bit lower, so we were able to sit closer to the court.
mm,
Like the entire experience and everything was phenomenal. And I had to remind myself that all of these folks require opportunity and time to get better. All these brands, all these leagues, all these things, it requires time. You can't expect them overnight to be something that they're not if
yeah.
they're just starting out. And it takes decades sometimes. And now the quality is so good. It really, I love watching WNBA games. It's a lot of
Yeah.
fun to watch them. And it's just because we've allowed that time to happen, right? And it's a reminder for all of us, for not just women's sport, but anybody starting out. It may not be the best product that's out there because it needs time. But men's soccer in the world stage in the US is not very good compared to everybody else. And this is men versus men. It takes time to develop, it takes time to grow, it takes investment. And so I think this is something really, really important for us to kind of keep an eye on because I do think it's a booming part of our consumer oriented world that we are in.
That's really cool. The other thing is for Nike, this was their first Super Bowl ad spot in 27 years,
Oh, I did not know that.
which I was so surprised by.
Huh. I'm shocked. That's amazing. That's great.
Mm,
Good for them. I thought it was great. Yeah.
go ahead.
Which one did you like?
I like the Nike one. Oh, Duncan. Um,
Oh
Jeremy
yeah.
Strong making
Yeah.
fun of himself in the Dunkin' Donuts commercial. Thank God that guy's publicist was like, "It's time.
Yeah.
We must
Yeah.
do some self-deprecating
Yeah.
humor. People
Yeah.
are on to
Yeah.
us. It's too
Yeah.
serious. We got to
The
do a joke
Duncan
about
one
the
was
method
really good.
acting."
Yeah, I thought it was really good. I thought
Yeah.
all aspect. I was surprised by how many celebrities were in that commercial.
Yeah.
I just felt like everybody was a celebrity in that commercial. It
It
was
was
pretty
crazy.
astonishing, but that was pretty funny. Yeah, that was good.
You know what the other thing is, in terms of demand, by the way, this was okay. So Rihanna was the 2023 Super Bowl as the halftime show.
Yeah, yeah,
I'm kind of jumping, but I was just thinking because the halftime show, which I loved, by the way, but the halftime shows, I think they don't get paid at all. But
correct.
when Rihanna went to do her show, she pulls out a Fenty mirror or something
Oh,
and like
that's right.
fixes. So she pays $0 for any ad space, gets on, pulls out her own makeup product,
Yeah,
fixes her
that's $7
makeup,
million
and then
dollars
they got
right
a big
there.
spike. Yeah, yeah. $5.6 million dollars in earned media in the first 12 hours following the game,
Oh, that's pretty good. That's pretty
which I
good.
thought that was pretty good too.
Yeah,
There's
no,
always been some ads that just stick with you for so long, like even just the old Budweiser with the frogs.
oh
Like
yeah,
people would just say that all the time,
yeah,
like Bud, why?
yeah.
And then do you remember the Volkswagen ad with the little kid like as Darth Vader
Oh
and he
yeah,
stops the
yeah,
car? There's
yeah,
just some that are so iconic that
yeah,
just because they stay with you and that you think about Volkswagen when you think
yeah,
about like cute commercials.
yeah.
But again, back to your point, I don't know, it's hard with the demand. Like how much does that really impact their sales?
Yeah, because the Volkswagen one is a great example. We saw it for years, or even the Budweiser one, right? I think the Budweiser ads are phenomenal. I think they're funny. I think they're great, and it gives me a positive image of the brand itself. Like,
Hmm.
oh, it's a good brand. It's a strong brand. But I don't buy Budweiser stock. I don't buy Budweiser. Like I don't, and not that I don't like it or anything like that. It's just not part of my daily routine to do. And I didn't go out of my way to change my behavior to go buy it, even though I have a very positive, outlook on the commercials and even not just, this weekend, but past Super Bowls and past commercials. It didn't
Hmm.
change my buying behavior at all. And I feel like a lot of people are like that with these ads. It's just hard to do
Yeah.
that attribution.
Yeah, and even in the past, debating what was worth it, why was it, why wasn't it? But as we move forward and Netflix does more of these live streaming events, I
Mm.
just wonder there's so many dynamics at play with the rights to the NFL, the leverage that they have against advertisers for all the viewers and everything. But with those two events, I think the first live event that was expected to be a lot of eyeballs was like a Love is Blind reunion with Netflix. And it was
Mm.
terrible. They totally fumbled it. But with the Mike Tyson and Jake Paul thing, and then with the Beyonce thing, I just wonder in the next couple of years if we're going to see this fragment further, and then all the advertising, like, will this kind of get disrupted and topple a little bit?
Yeah, I think so. I think we're kind of hitting that limit. 7 million for ad space where we're debating on the return. I think you're hitting the top end here, because
Yeah.
I find CEOs, especially in the volatile environment, being able to justify to the board that I just spent 7 million and my stock price is still down and my revenue is flat year over year. It's just,
But
I don't
people are
see how that.
talking. We
Yeah.
think, we hope.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how this will turn out, but I have a feeling that there are more strategic ways to spend the 7 million where you can actually see the return. And I think digital is obviously, with these pockets of things that are happening on Twitter and Twitch and other places, that's getting viewership and younger viewership, mind you, right?
Mhm.
Because these younger viewerships are not sitting down on a couch with their old friends and watching Super Bowl for 5 hours, right? These younger people are streaming it. They're watching small spurts of content. They're doing all these things. They're finding ads, because there's some buddies are talking about it. So that behavior is going to completely change, which is going to require this model to change. So I think you're right. There's a ROI component, but there's also just the human behavior of how we're consuming information that's different also. And both of those together is just gonna, it's gonna topple, where we're at.
I just went back to the numbers for advertising for pure play digital. The expectation for the end of 2025, $813 billion from a investment perspective and what people are focusing on is
Wow.
so much higher than TV, which is obvious that it would move in that direction. But obvious, like for us and for probably a lot of B2B companies, they're probably not super heavy into things like TikTok. I mean, Facebook, I don't know. But a lot of these social channels where a lot of money is getting invested, I think it'll be interesting to see takeaways for B2B companies as that continues to grow.
It's something that I get on the fence about because I think there is a brand building um component, right? It's the feeling that you do. So we do see B2B companies advertise themselves out in the market. So Deloitte does it as an example. It's not
Hmm.
predominant, it's not, exclusively B2B. They have a lot of B2C work that they do also. But it's not a normal consumer is not buying Deloitte, right? Yet Deloitte has advertisements everywhere. So,
Hmm.
but because they're building that trust, they're building their brand, they're building all this stuff. And so it makes sense for them to have this sort of constant spend where they're maintaining their brand, they're maintaining that connection with the consumers. And so they can kind of keep doing what they're doing. So I think there is a question that says with B2B, where are you in your evolution? Certainly, if you're a startup, I don't know if that's the best use of your dollars to be able to do it, but if you're a stable brand like Deloitte, maybe there is X percentage of your marketing dollars that has to go there in order to create that stability of brand recognition and brand connection that you need to spend, and that's worth it. I'm not sure. It's something that I'm always on the fence with, whether it makes sense for B2B companies to spend money on advertising, especially television advertising.
Yeah. I mean, even from a startup perspective, though, in the last 5 years, 10 years, there's such a huge shift in individuals being in the foreground versus
Yeah,
the
that's a
brand
good
and the
point.
logo.
Yeah.
And even though I think for the big guys, the logo investments are kind of necessary, like the bare minimum, you have to be top of mind and investing in that in some way. Even on the startups, you'll see, like, even just looking on LinkedIn, how much more do people do these videos and
Yeah.
personal posts and things? And then all of the brands are getting like way kind of diminished in the algorithm. And
That's a
sure.
great point, right? Because I can see how social media and bursts of content is not brand focused, but individual brand focused. So what are the leaders saying? What are the people that work in these institutions? What are they saying? How are they behaving? That becomes part of the brand strategy, but it's much more social media, short bursts of content. It's more individual based. And that could be B2B, it could be B2C, it could be anything for that matter.
And people want authenticity. So that's also kind of an interesting place where Super Bowl branding and a lot of the stuff is very old school. But
Mm.
then when you go on to TikTok, even though you see these ads, you also see a lot more of like, oh, Poppy, you know, the probiotic
Oh
soda.
yeah, yeah, the
And
soda.
they did an ad with a bunch of influencers as
Mm,
their big spot
mm.
and TikTok influencers and others. And then they sent as a part of the campaign a soda machine filled with
Huh.
Poppy and got a bunch of backlash because it's wasteful and insane. And then they're like on the defense, or it's part of the campaign. We want to put them in places where people can have the sodas, they're for the public, whatever. But then the CEO or the founder comes onto TikTok to defend herself and explain it in a very, I thought, like authentic, natural way, just talking as herself, being like, let me just talk about what happened here. And that was just such
Huh.
an interesting like clashing of the two worlds where you have
Oh,
this big
interesting.
brand decision and the influencers and the big scale thing, and then the founder herself who's like, all right, oopsie.
Well, that's the issue these days with, individuals speaking, right? Because,
We want
if
accountability. I want to see it. I want to
yeah,
see it in your
that's
eyes.
right. That's right.
Anything we didn't cover? Just looking through my notes, there were so many different things. Just overall with the Super Bowl, the Eagles winning, which I will refrain from saying too much about.
I thought overall, I thought it was really positive. I thought the whole experience was really positive. It was, I mean, I'm not a fan of either team, but it was a very boring Super Bowl. So I'm sure as an Eagle fan, it was fantastic. But as an observer, it was like, oh man,
Oh, I
is it
gotta have a
over
better game than
yet? Is
this.
it
Let's take
over
it
yet?
closer. I know. That part was definitely odd. But then I'm for people listening, I'm downtown, so it was nice to see all the excitement around the city. The parade is Friday, so uh more excitement in the next couple days and then on to the next one.
That's awesome. I love
Yeah.
it. I love it.
Okay. All right,
All
cool.
right.
Well, thank you for doing
Thank you.
this.
Yeah.
See you later.